Hello everyone, this is Jacob. Today let us break down what has been happening on Elon Musk's MacroHard project. In March 2026, one side of the story came from media reports claiming the project had effectively stalled, that executives had left, teams had frozen, and technical progress had run into serious trouble. But on the other side, Musk personally stepped in late at night to defend the project, saying it was still moving forward and was actually a core joint product of xAI and Tesla, a system called Digital Optimus. What makes this story so important is that it is not just about whether one AI agent project is alive or dead. Behind the headlines is a much bigger picture involving Tesla, xAI, and SpaceX, all tied together through technology, capital, and legal risk. There is also a shareholder lawsuit that has been unfolding for nearly 2 years, and this latest episode may be a major turning point in that battle. So today we are going to unpack the full picture behind Musk's AI strategy and ask this project called MacroHard is truly a system that could reshape the industry, or whether it is simply another very ambitious promise that may prove much harder to deliver than it sounds. Let us go back to where the controversy began. On March 11, 2026, Business Insider published an exclusive report citing internal sources from xAI. The report described MacroHard as a troubled research effort that had been struggling from the very beginning. One of the problems was leadership instability. In 2026, two project leaders reportedly left one after another, making an already slow-moving effort even harder to manage. Musk then announced at an all-hands meeting that xAI co-founder Toby Pohun would take over the project. But according to the report, he resigned only 16 days later, with internal sources saying the main reason was the extreme pressure Musk was putting on the schedule. If the executive departures represented a personnel crisis, then the shutdown of the data collection pipeline looked like the final blow. The goal of MacroHard was to build an AI agent capable of doing white-collar computer work like a human employee. To make that happen, xAI needed massive amounts of training data showing how real people use computers in everyday work. So the company reportedly assembled an outsourced data labeling team of more than 600 people. Their job was to record their screens while working, capturing mouse clicks, keyboard input, software interactions, and every other action that could provide imitation examples for the model. Then in early February, an internal memo reportedly said researchers had found many flaws in the training process. That memo said the project needed fundamental changes to both the model architecture and the way data was being collected. As a result, all data collection was urgently paused. The team originally promised that work would restart in 2 to 4 weeks, but by early March, when the media report appeared, the core collection effort was still shut down with no clear sign of a restart. And the report suggested that MacroHard's problems were not isolated. Instead, they reflected wider issues inside xAI itself. According to outside reporting, xAI has faced serious internal turnover since its founding, and of its original 12 co-founders, only 2 were reportedly still in place at the time of the article. Former employees also told media outlets that xAI has been in catch-up mode from the start. Whether compared with OpenAI or Anthropic, the company was said to be lagging in both large language models and AI agent development. Even prediction markets reflected that perception. On Polymarket, a contract asking who would have the best AI model by the end of June 2026 showed support for xAI at only around 6%, far behind Anthropic at 40% and Google at 37%. Taken together, those signals suggested that xAI still lacked a widely recognized technological edge. Business Insider used all these details to send a clear message that MacroHard had essentially collapsed due to management instability and technical bottlenecks. But only hours after that story began spreading, Musk responded directly on X with a long post rejecting the entire narrative. He said that MacroHard, or Digital Optimus, was an xAI-only project at all. Instead, he described it as a joint project between xAI and Tesla, and even said it was a core part of the investment framework connecting the two companies. According to Musk, the project had not stalled. In fact, it was becoming central to both businesses. More importantly, his response marked the first time he publicly laid out the technical structure and operating logic of the project in detail, giving people a much clearer sense of how he says the system is supposed to work. Musk said the system has 2 main parts, Grok and Digital Optimus. He described Grok as a master navigator with a deep understanding of the world, responsible for guidance and decision-making. Digital Optimus, by contrast, is responsible for execution. Its job is to process and act on the last 5 seconds of real-time computer screen video along with keyboard and mouse instructions. To make the relationship more intuitive, Musk compared Grok to a more advanced navigation system, something that plans the path while Digital Optimus actually carries out the actions and adjusts in real time based on what is appearing on the screen. In other words, one layer thinks and the other layer acts. To explain the deeper logic, Musk referred to Daniel Kahneman's famous dual process theory. In that framework, human thought is divided into System 1 and System 2. System 1 is intuitive and fast. It handles routine and habitual actions without conscious effort. System 2 is slower, more deliberate, and responsible for complex reasoning and analysis. Musk mapped digital Optimus to System 1 and Grok to System 2. Put simply, digital Optimus is the layer that acts almost automatically, while Grok is the layer that thinks carefully before making decisions. Together, Musk argues, they form a full AI agent system that can move from higher-level reasoning to practical computer execution. On the hardware side, Musk emphasized what he sees as one of the project's biggest competitive strengths: cost efficiency. He said the system will run mainly on Tesla's in-house AI4 chip, which he said is priced at around $650, while also using xAI's NVIDIA-based cloud hardware when needed. At the same time, he stressed that dependence on NVIDIA cloud resources would remain relatively restrained. Based on public specifications, Tesla's AI4 is not a general-purpose chip but an inference chip designed specifically for real-time video processing. It reportedly offers around 300 tera operations per second of AI inference. Performance: 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 memory and power consumption of roughly 50 to 72 watts. Musk's argument goes further than cost. He says every Tesla vehicle equipped with an AI4 chip could become an independent digital Optimus node. When a car is parked, the chip could switch from handling road video for full self-driving tasks to handling screen video plus keyboard and mouse tasks for the digital agent system. That would mean Tesla's millions of deployed vehicles could form a vast distributed computing network for the project without requiring large new hardware purchases. If that idea works in practice, it would be a major advantage. It would give the system access to enormous computing capacity using hardware that already exists in the field instead of building everything from scratch. Musk also claimed this could become the world's only real-time intelligent AI system, and that, in principle, it could simulate the operations of an entire company. The name MacroHard is obviously a joke aimed at Microsoft. In Musk's framing, software-first companies that do not manufacture physical hardware have workflows and operating logic that could theoretically be modeled by this type of AI system. In fact, xAI had already filed a trademark application for MacroHard with the United States Patent and Trademark Office back in August 2025. So this late-night response did more than deny reports of project failure. It sent a much stronger signal that Tesla and xAI had already filed a trademark application for MacroHard with the United States Patent and Trademark Office back in August. That response triggered sharply divided reactions. Some people in the tech world praised the concept. One user on X named Ellen J said combining Tesla's hardware efficiency with xAI's model capabilities sounded like a very powerful mix, and even called the MacroHard name clever. But many others were skeptical. Analyst Jadi Parashar argued that Musk's claim that no other company could do this was overstated. Around the world, many labs and tech firms are already exploring AI agents and autonomous systems. In that view, Musk's project may represent a different technical path rather than a truly revolutionary leap. So, even if the architecture is interesting, the question remains whether it is being described with too much hype. The legal criticisms were even sharper. One comment from a user named Lucas captured the concern very clearly. He said that if a chip costing only $650 can really run a real-time AI system that can simulate an entire company, then only two possibilities exist. Either this is the most important product launch of the last decade, or it is the boldest empty promise since Theranos. There is no middle ground. That comment resonated because Musk's descriptions often operate on a grand scale. In several past projects from Optimus to global Starlink coverage, from Theranos to Theranos, there is no middle ground. That comment resonated because Musk's descriptions often operate on a grand scale. In several past projects from Optimus to global Starlink coverage, of the instances in plane to projects in Theranos, there is no middle ground. If Musk's defense pushed the technical debate to a new level, then SpaceX's acquisition of xAI made the capital structure behind all this even more complex. In fact, before the public fight over MacroHard, Musk had already completed a major reorganization among his companies. In February 2026, SpaceX acquired xAI in an all-stock transaction. The combined entity was reportedly valued at $1.25 trillion. And there were plans for an initial public offering later in 2026. Officially, Musk said the acquisition was meant to support building data centers in space, but many observers believe the real reason was much more immediate. helping solve xAI's enormous funding pressure. According to reports, xAI has been burning roughly $1 billion per month. That kind of spending puts any company under severe strain. Being absorbed by SpaceX would give it access to a much more stable capital base. Tesla also played a major role in this larger financial structure. On January 16, 2026, Tesla announced that it would invest about $2 billion in xAI Series E preferred shares on the same market terms as other investors. Tesla also signed a framework agreement with xAI to support AI cooperation between the two companies. At the time, Tesla Chief Financial Officer Vaibhav Taneja said that if xAI's technology could help Tesla accelerate its own AI development, then the investment fit Tesla's strategic plan. Once SpaceX acquired xAI, Tesla's $2 billion investment effectively turned into an indirect stake in the newly combined SpaceX and xAI entity. That means Tesla, xAI, and SpaceX are now tied together not only by Musk's leadership, but also by capital structure and shared incentives. And the technical collaboration appears to go well beyond finance. According to reporting, xAI had already been working on AI training for two important areas before all of this became public. One was an AI sales assistant for the SpaceX website. The other was training systems to handle spreadsheet operations. Both efforts line up closely with the broader goals of MacroHard and Digital Optimus, which are about enabling AI to perform real computer-based work. A former xAI engineer, Suleiman Gori, had also said on a podcast last year that MacroHard was basically a digital version of Optimus. Just as Tesla's physical Optimus robot is meant to operate in the real world, MacroHard would operate in digital environments and imitate human behavior on computers. As the project expanded, xAI reportedly planned to use idle Tesla vehicles as a source of computing power, which lines up closely with Musk's latest description. So on the surface, it looked as though Musk was using both financial restructuring and technical integration to clear a path for the project's future. But in reality, I want to be a certificate bias to the source to understand that we have to go back to June 2024. At that time, the Cleveland Bakers and Teamsters Pension Fund filed a lawsuit against Musk in the Delaware Court of Chancery. The claim was that Musk had breached his fiduciary duties by creating xAI because xAI's AI research directly overlapped with Tesla's own AI business. As Tesla's central leader, Musk was accused of moving AI talent and resources away from Tesla and into a private company he controlled personally, thereby harming Tesla and its AI were fundamentally doing different things. In September 2024, after the Wall Street Journal reported that Tesla and xAI were discussing an arrangement involving revenue sharing in exchange for access to xAI models and resources, Musk publicly pushed back. He said the reporting was inaccurate. According to Musk, Tesla had learned useful things from conversations with xAI engineers, and those insights had helped accelerate unsupervised full self-driving work. But Tesla did not need to buy technology licenses from xAI, and there was no revenue-sharing arrangement. He also argued that xAI's models were too large to run on Tesla vehicle inference chips, and that Tesla did not want those kinds of models running inside vehicles anyway. Musk then explained what he saw as the technical difference between Tesla and xAI. He said Tesla's real-world AI systems were far more powerful than any large language model in terms of practical context. Tesla systems need to process the full video history from all vehicle cameras, which amounts to several gigabytes of data, and do so on chips drawing only around 300 watts with far less memory and bandwidth than something like NVIDIA's H100. Yet, those systems can still compress complex real-world video into simple driving commands. Musk's purpose in making that argument was clear. He wanted to show the court that Tesla and xAI served fundamentally different purposes and therefore did not represent a direct conflict of interest. But now Musk has publicly said that Tesla and xAI are jointly developing Digital Optimus. That statement cuts directly against his earlier legal position. The project suggests that the two companies do overlap in a major way and are in fact collaborating on a central product. It also suggests that xAI's technology is important not just in theory, but in Tesla's core AI efforts, including agents and potentially autonomous systems. Even more importantly, in this architecture, the higher reasoning and decision-making layer belongs to Grok, which belongs to xAI, while Tesla and xAI are jointly developing Digital Optimus. That statement cuts directly against his earlier legal position. The project suggests that the two companies do overlap in a major way and are in fact collaborating on a central product. It also suggests that xAI, and that creates a very difficult legal question. If xAI's technology is truly so important to Tesla's future AI development, then Musk have a responsibility to develop that technology inside Tesla rather than in a private company where he could capture the upside separately. His earlier defense depended on arguing that xAI and Tesla serve fundamentally different purposes. But by announcing a closely integrated joint project, he may have personally undermined that defense. How he now explains this apparent compliance hole to Tesla shareholders, and how he handles the continuing shareholder lawsuit may become one of the biggest challenges he faces next. That is the latest on Musk's MacroHard project. If you have thoughts on the technology, the capital structure, or the legal implications, leave them in the comments. See you in the next episode. Hello everyone, this is Jason. Elon Musk really did lose in court. In March 2026, a San Francisco jury ruled that two of his famous tweets from 2022 misled investors and helped send Twitter shares down by nearly 10%. That left shareholders facing heavy losses and opened the door to damages that could reach several $billions. But the same verdict also said there was no evidence that Musk had organized some grand fraud scheme. It did not find his podcast remarks improper either. Even more importantly, he still went ahead and paid the full $44 billion to buy the platform. Now he is still reshaping X with aggressive moves against fake accounts. So was this a costly mistake, or just another example of Musk refusing to back down? Do not miss today's breakdown. Musk says Starship version 3 could expand payload to orbit to around 200 tons, and SpaceX already knows how to manage heat for thousands of satellites in space. Whether you agree with his pace or his style, the pattern is clear. He thinks in infrastructure, in systems, and in scale that most people never even tried to imagine. That is why every legal fight, every product update, every energy hire, and every space milestone tends to connect back to the same larger mission. Thanks for spending your valuable time with me today. I hope you found this breakdown useful. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. If you want more updates in these areas, please like and subscribe. This is Jason, and I will see you in the next video.